Hello and welcome. It is April 24th, right at 2 o'clock, and today we are very excited. We have a wonderful group of folks who are joined to think through what is going on. We have remote learning across our state in relation to our pandemic experience. We ESUs are here to help you think through planning these educational opportunities for remote learning. It's becoming more likely that remote learning will continue in some form or another, maybe in pockets or maybe even across our state, moving into that 2020-2021 academic year. And so we want to help you now. We'll have Friday webinars from today until May 15th. From 1 to 2 for elementary. This is middle school, high school, 2 to 3. The structure of our time together, the first half an hour, we'll have a conversation with an educator who has created a remote learning plan. In the second half of our meeting today, we'll engage in some breakouts and have a good conversation with colleagues across the state. There are 17 ESUs in the state of Nebraska, and 15 of them are represented on this webinar. That is outstanding. We are across the state. So then in May, and we'll talk about this later too, there's an opportunity for more learning, and in June there's an opportunity for some more learning. But what about? So Eileen will pop this website into our chat here in just a moment. But this is the website where we are housing the Digital Age Pedagogy Project. I should say my name is Nick Ziegler. I work at ESU 5 in Beatrice, Nebraska, and I'm joined by my co-host Eileen Barks at ESU 2. We are the co-chairs of the Digital Age Pedagogy Project. This is a collaboration between and across our ESUs, as well as with our Department of Education, around things in normal times like digital age skills, blended learning best practices, but these are not normal times. We have adapted the resources around blended learning best practices to meet the needs of now. So what are they? Our Department of Education is recommending 2 separate options for districts in thinking through what is the continuity of learning? What are we doing in remote learning? Those 2 options defined by our Department of Education are educational opportunities and enrichment opportunities. And we are going to dive right into what that means in a moment. But before we begin, I'd like to ask you, how are we doing? I want to, so here's a poll. And so I want to relaunch the poll. Very good. And it's asking you on your screen, how confident are you can create these remote learning experiences? There's about 50 of us in the room. Take another 10 seconds, only 10 seconds to complete the poll here. Another 5 seconds, please. And great, I'm gonna stop, and now I get to share the results. So wonderful. This looks very similar to what it looked like with our elementary friends. We have, the majority of us are somewhere in that middle. We need a little bit of help. We need some support. This is the place for you. We ESU colleagues across the state are trying to put forth some supports. There's also a group of you who are feeling fairly good. I can do this. That's wonderful too. I hope you'll get to share in our breakout sessions in just a little bit. I also hope we learn some new nuggets of information on how you might organize things. And there's a few of us who are thinking, oh my, I need a lot of help. And that's all right. We are here for you. That's our goal today. So excellent. Let's jump right in. I'm going to stop my share, and Eileen's going to take over.
I'm going to take over and share my screen with you all. You should be able to see this remote learning support website as well. And Nick alluded to that our Department of Ed has identified 2 opportunities, one as educational opportunities and one as enrichment opportunities. I'm going to just quickly share a little bit about educational opportunities and the things that you might want to consider going forward into your remote learning plan. Now, remember, you can find any of these tools on the website, Digital Age Pedagogy. I shared that one with you. I also shared the first schematic that Nick shared with the plan moving forward. But this is my favorite piece of this website because to me, it speaks to me because it's very simple and it's very succinct and it's very targeted. It says, what is my learning objective? What do I want to teach right here? What's my goal? What's my essential? What's my piece of information that I want my students to get? Then I might put in a self-assessment, like I can do this by myself, or I know all about nouns and verbs, or I know very little, but you assess the student first. Then you have your 4 components. You have that, what's my instruction piece? What's my little snippet of instruction that I want to give to the kids? How are the kids going to process through that instruction? How are they going to practice? And what's my product that I want them to have after? You know, this schematic also allows for those online tasks and those offline tasks. We know that there's not equity across our state as far as all kids being able to access online materials. There are some very high quality materials that are coming out in the form of paper and pencil. We also know that there's some very low quality things going out in the form of paper and pencil that might be packets, that might be some packets that were busy work. And what I'm here to say is that you don't have time with the kids for them to be doing busy work right now. It has to be very streamlined and focused and really gets to the heart of what's the essential that we want the kiddos to do. I'm going to turn it back over to Nick, and he's going to go into the enrichment ones. I'll stop my screen.
Excellent. So let's continue. So I'm going to share back over here. Very good. As we scroll down on the page, you'll see a few different resources. We're going to talk about this weekly schedule auto generator here in just a little bit, but that's where we can turn your plan very easily into an attractive thing that can be either shared as is, communicating the week's events, or you could print it out and as well. When we scroll down toward the bottom, though, we see these enrichment opportunities. And when we think about enrichment opportunities, most of the conversations I'm having with my school districts in our area around enrichment opportunities are happening at the elementary classroom. Most of our school districts are expecting our middle school and high school folks to continue, that there is some input, there is some new learning going on. But if that's not the case, one opportunity potentially that you might want to play with, there's a few different types of online opportunities identified here. I think the one that's most relevant to your context, our middle school, high school, is the idea potentially of engaging kids in online certificate programs. There are a lot of different examples of MOOCs or businesses, industries putting together a learning path for the kids to get through, and then they earn some sort of external certificate for having completed what they've done. There are opportunities in Microsoft, for example, or Google certification for our students. But again, coming back to this idea, most of our districts are playing with educational opportunities, or expecting educational opportunities out of our middle school and high school teachers. So with that, I would like to bring in Ari, I forgot how to pronounce it. You're gonna have to remind me one more time, Ari.
Yep, you got it that time, Ari.
Ari is a business teacher, and Ari is involved in a professional learning experience around blended learning best practices right now. And as part of that experience, she's decided to create some of these remote learning plans, and that's wonderful. So you can see real quick on one page a potential learning plan. So Ari, tell us about it. Up here is the description. What are kids learning?
Yep. So this specific one, my first one that I started out with was like an introduction to economics, opportunity cost, scarcity, and thinking about this. And then this one is looking at the 4 factors of production. So I included slides. So if you want to click on those where it says these slides.
Good.
And then, so I made the slides, but really was just me kind of pulling the information together. I think so much of what's going on right now is realizing that you really don't need to recreate the wheel. For part of this, it's listened to like a 6-minute podcast that Econ EdLink had put together. And so it was just kind of packaging it in a way for kids that they understand what they're supposed to be getting out of it. I also created my own graphic organizer where they're going to kind of collect all of their information, their notes, and then do their own activities. So it starts from taking notes, practicing, figuring out what those types are in like a house, and then picking an object in. And then,
slow you down just a little bit, and so wonderful. Here's that instruction. So we have a reading, right? A reading that you have put together, and it has an external link to some other content. One big key point to make is that you don't necessarily have to find all new content, right? We want to promote the idea that you are in your classrooms, not just Ari, but all of us here are using those high quality resources that you have access to in your classroom through your curriculum. But that's wonderful. So here's a great example of communicating succinctly. Here's the input. I want you to read and then complete this graphic organizer. So wonderful. There's your input around those 4 different components. And then we have a process activity, a GIM kit. Tell us about that, Ari.
So this is a review of vocab of just the first one that I did, and then also this one. So it's a little bit of cumulative. And then it also gives kids examples of the 4 factors of production and like identifying them. So it's kind of like it took a worksheet in essence. Instead of matching to the correct thing, now you're doing it in a game where once you get to $50,000, you've won.
Good. And so when we talk about process activities, the key is that students get some immediate feedback. In this example, we're using a gamified kind of quizzing experience, GimKit, to have kids practice those key vocabularies. And so the processing of those key vocabulary, or in this case, ideas around our objective. Ari, tell me about GimKit a little bit more. I am hearing wonderful things about GimKit. What is your experience? What is GimKit? Describe the experience.
When I explain it to people, I kind of like explain it in the sense that it's Kahoot, but the questions are on their screen. They're earning money. They can buy power-ups to earn more money, to attack each other, stuff like that. But what I really like the most about it is it incentivizes the kids to go through the questions more than once. With Kahoot, it's a one and done thing unless they're going through the whole thing again. Whereas this, it'll repeat the questions. And so you do have to have more questions in there so it's not too repetitive, but the kids seem to really like it and get into it. They have a live version, which you can set for like a time. They have constantly different add-ons and power-ups and songs and silly little things that the kids get excited about. And then also you can set up homework assignments where they go in and then they have to earn a set amount of money and then they're done.
And the kids, what's their reaction?
They really like it a lot.
Excellent, thank you. And so this is not a gamified independent learning platform. The distinction here is that with those independent learning platforms, the teachers don't have to create the content. With GimKit, you can pull from what other people have created, or you can create your own content here. So excellent.
And one of the main ways that I actually use it is it's super easy to export from Quizlet. So I actually keep all of my flashcards in Quizlet and then just copy and paste it into GimKit when I want to do a game in there.
That makes it super easy. Now we're using two separate platforms for kids to be able to practice those key skills or the key vocabulary. Outstanding. Good. Tell me about the next experience. So this is the practice activity.
So practice activity, so in that GimKit, it gave them examples of different factors of production. Like if it says a tree, then the correct answer would be that it's a natural resource, it's land, it's not human capital or something. So they kind of practice those one-offs, and then for that part, they're thinking about what is going to go into building a house and coming up with concrete examples of each of those things.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. So wonderful. So we've had our instruction, we've had our process activity. They got some immediate feedback and a gamified experience, a practice activity where they've begun to now apply those different key concepts to a product activity. So tell me more about the finish the race.
So to finish the race, they get to pick whatever they want within their house and kind of identify different factors of production that went into it. So they're going to need to know like who's in charge of the company that made it, or who was the entrepreneur that started the company. So it may require a little bit of research, or maybe they're going to pick something simple like an iPhone, and most people can identify that Steve Jobs and different big figures in some of those companies, but it's totally up to the kid and needing to then come up with, okay, well, you need glass, you need people putting the phones together, and just all the different things that go into it.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. So a deeper level, right? When we think about that practice and product, we're talking about diving deeper in terms of those depths of knowledge, where the process activity was at that DOK1, trying to promote that we're remembering the ideas, remembering the key. Maybe in a math classroom, it's the process, right? The sequence of steps to take to solve the problem. In a business classroom, we're talking about the key vocabulary. So that process activity is focused on helping the kids remember. They get some immediate feedback. The practice, they're beginning to dive just a little bit deeper, beginning to apply. And at that third level, now we're asking them, in this example, to find their own example, right, inside their home and explain it. And then turning it back into us. One more point to make on this resource is that we have this quick self-assessment. Tell me about that, please.
So just kind of took what was the big idea, big picture of what they were needing to be able to do at the end of this lesson, and putting it into that self-check so they can determine, okay, have I really gotten from this lesson what my teacher wanted me to get out of it?
Outstanding. And so when we come back over to our Digital Age Pedagogy site, I'd make some direct connections. So here is that self-assessment, and that is directly part of empowering learners around blended learning best practices. Here's that instruction piece and that process piece, and we saw it then inside of our one-pager, our pager, communicating our different ideas. I'd like to share, though, that you started looking, filling out our table. And so tell us about thinking through online and offline tasks.
So I am in a situation now where we're kind of, not all of our kids have access to technology, so we're in a mixture of things and kind of trying to figure out what it's going to look like for summer school and God forbid, maybe the fall. But so for each thing, it was kind of important for me to have both an option for an online and an offline task. So for the most parts, it's printable versions, like the graphic organizer already made it so that if the kid wanted to print it out and do it on paper, they could. And then I took the podcast and included the text from that. And just like for, I think the paper version to replace GimKit was I just attached a printed off copy of flashcards that they could cut out and then have to review with. and just kind of going back and forth between those to make sure that they're getting the same learning opportunities in both options.
I think that is so important. So thank you. Thank you very much for illustrating that. So that we're all on the same page, this page, right, this web page, we're all on the same page. Here is the link to that chart that Ari used to help organize her ideas. And then when we scroll down, Ari put that into our weekly schedule auto generator, and it's just copying and pasting from here. What are students going to do? I can explain how scarcity impacts my wants and needs, and then I paste that in. I then can select from a few different templates, and once you press submit, it will automatically spit that back out to you in an editable Google slide that you can then add the hyperlinks. Tell us about that process from your perspective, Ari.
It was super simple. I think for me, I originally, when I was filling out the template, I wrote it in like teacher language. So for me, it was mostly going in and like making it student-friendly language, and then adding the links. But it was awesome. I could do it in probably less than 5 minutes, the transition from my planning document to the finished document.
So great. And so I mean, going from the planning to that finish was 5 minutes. I'm sure it took you a little longer than 5 minutes to plan the entire.
Planning was a little more time.
Ari, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Ari, how did you deliver this to the students? How do they get this information?
I have not at this time done that, because we're not doing,
right, because you're not business
courses. But I think I would probably use Google Classroom, or since I've included file and make a copy, I could probably just email a link to them.
Yeah, emailing a link or putting it on your Google Classroom and using some sort of a familiar way that students are able to get it. Ari, tell me what district you're from again?
Ralston.
Okay, so in Ralston, are they using a common learning management system?
We have Google Classroom, but it's a little, not everybody uses it. We aren't the most technology forward district. We are hopefully going to be changing that in the future, so we'll see. But I think our kids definitely, when I do have them, when we use Google Classroom, they don't really know how to use Google Classroom. They're pulling everything out of their email. They're like, oh, is that the assignment you emailed me at like 4 o'clock this morning? It's like, well, no, I posted it on Google Classroom, and they were the ones who were awake at 4 o'clock in the morning emailing you. But so they need some training on that. So it would probably be starting there with training and then getting into the content and such.
So you bring up you bring up a great point of common learning management system, ease of use for students, and how they know how to get their assignments.
How long do you think it would take students to get through your lesson, what you've created here?
I saw a question as far as offline packets. I know my district had a pickup day or two, and then any of the ones that weren't picked up, they mailed to students. As far as this activity, I would say this could probably be all done within like 45 minutes to an hour.
And that's pretty consistent when we think about the guidelines being shared from our Department of Education. I believe, and Eileen, remind me, what is the time recommendation for middle school, high school?
So for middle school, high school, I actually just put the document in your chat. And for middle school, high school, it's approximately 3 to 4 hours a day for all classes. That would be the expectation. At this point of the year, we might be on the lower side, maybe on the 3 hours a day, but just depending on where they're at in their remote learning, I would say definitely if we start up in the fall this way, we would be looking at the full 3 to 4 hours, which brings probably Nick to another question about scheduling. Go ahead.
Well, definitely. And so what does that mean for me as a classroom teacher? So if we're talking about roughly 3 or so hours a day, or 3 or 4 hours of expected work for your students a day, for me as a classroom teacher, I can maybe expect an hour and a half or so for kids to work on my things, because they have 7 or 8 other classes as well. Right? And so then you're right, Eileen, it does come back to a scheduling question in relation to when are we asking kids to work on what content. Some of our districts are moving toward like a Monday and a Wednesday, working a little bit on periods 1 through 4, for example, Tuesday, Thursday, 5 through 8, or the like. Other districts are moving toward, like on Monday in the morning, you'll do period 1 things, in the afternoon period 2 things, Tuesday 3 and 4th periods, and so on. But the key here is that you are consistent with whatever those expectations are within your district. That we can't stress that enough, that consistency in those expectations, and for the kids, for you, for the parents, for everybody involved.
I did just put in a link into the chat box. This is actually Laurel Concord's schedule. It's right on their front page, and you can see how they've divided it out. It's one way that works for them. There are multiple ways of thinking about your scheduling, so you're not overlapping and we're not exhausting our parents and our kids. Because we have to remember that the parents are also home trying to work, and they're not used to being monitoring their students day in and day out. That's really our job as a teacher. And so we cannot take our 7.5-hour day that we had and replicate it online. We have to really think about what those essentials are, kind of like what Ari was talking about. What's that one thing? You know, I don't know if you've seen City Slickers, but I always think about what's the one thing, right? So I know I'm old. Curly, give me some smiles, people, right? That one thing that we're looking at. Thanks, Whitney. I appreciate that thumbs up.
That's great. Before we jump into breakouts, Ari, is there anything else you'd like to share about your unit or your remote learning plan?
No, okay. I don't think so.
Excellent. I do want to bring attention to, so we've looked at Ari's plan. There's another example here on our website for a weekly plan template that would walk you through an example too. Another idea, potentially, you could string unit or weeks together, potentially. I'm looking at my social studies friends here online. Maybe you start a unit that's going to take kids 4 weeks to get through, and students are going to have some ability to choose. They'll choose an ancient civilization. And in week 1, we're going to learn about different types of governments. That'll be the input. That's our essential learning, potentially. So in week 1, we'll learn about the different types of governments. We'll learn those vocabularies. The practice will be that I'm going to dive deeper. I pick the Greeks, for example, and I'm going to now identify with my product what type of government they had. In week 2, we'll talk about geographic location. In week 3, we'll talk about something else, and so on. So that potentially at the end, you have a final product, and I know we're talking, that's a long time, that's 4 weeks, right? But it's an opportunity for you. You don't have to necessarily have disjointed, not connected week-to-week plans. You could potentially engage in a longer process. But the key point here is that we are talking about one essential learning, be it the types of government, be it the geographic location. We're focusing in on one essential learning for each one of these remote plans. Potentially in your district, you're able to, the expectations are that you get through 2 of these remote plans in a week. I think when we think about those manageable expectations, it will be key to think through what is the time on task that I'm allotted from my district, and what is the time that is actually taking our kids to get through these things? Potentially
Hey, Nick.
Go ahead.
Nick, Ari is making a suggestion that you show the completed plan. And maybe we'll do that when we come back from breakouts, because
The one that
Ari,
had like the suggested resources, I mean.
Good.
yeah, we will do that when we come back from breakouts for sure.
Breakouts. So we're on our way to breakouts, and so that means we're going to put you into some different rooms, and your challenge is to talk to each other. How about that?
And this was super exciting from the last one. They loved this part, so stay on.
What's one takeaway from our presentation thus far? What's one challenge you're currently facing? What's a recent success? So we're going to put you into some different breakout rooms right now, and then I'll share the link. That is the link to the Padlet. You'll have access to it in your chat. So you may need to copy the link and paste it into a web browser. But wonderful. We'll open up some recreate. And very good. I want that many. Allocate. And you have about another 10 or 15 minutes to have a good conversation. Enjoy. Go ahead and click on join the breakout room. And I'm going to share my screen here. So this was the document that Ari was talking about at the end. It's the same document on our website. When you open this and you scroll down, one of the resources, so it tells you about, first off, it tells you about the weekly schedule auto generator, and it gives you a quick preview of what that might look like. But then there's also a whole bunch of ideas around what types of tools might be included in these different boxes and these different ideas of practice, product, and the like. So that's what Ari was referencing there. But I'd like to pull back to our conversations that we had. And Eileen, I'd like you to take the floor, please. What were some things that happened in your room?
We had a great conversation in our room after we talked a little bit about horses. But I think from our group, the GIM kit aspect and being able to recycle questions through, not just Kahoot where it's one at a time, but really using that for that gamification and that engaging the kids. Let's face it, we got to engage middle school, high school, right? So it's super important to engage and to build those relationships. And then that consistency of using that document. We talked a lot about the auto-generated document, how it would be consistent, how kids had one place to look, how they knew exactly where things were on that, and that you still had some choice in either a racetrack or what, I didn't see the other ones. I guess there was a country scene. There was all sorts of different things that Nick in his mind just created those.
I'm not very good at pretty, Eileen. You know me. I tried.
Nick, if we stay together, you'll be really good at pretty later.
All right. Well, that's great. Tell us about some. First off, I agree. GimKit is one tool that I am hearing wonderful things about. I know Kelly Garcia is a Spanish teacher online here right now, and they organize across districts a GimKit experience for kids every Thursday, and I've heard wonderful things about that. Eileen, what were some challenges that you heard?
Yeah, I think from our group, there were some challenges of getting kids to complete activities. I believe that it might have been Nicole, maybe it was Nicole it was talking. If I got that wrong, I'm sorry about that. But when we started in March, mid-March, she had 14 out of 14 of her kids that would turn things in, but now it's dropped. And I think that might be happening towards the end at this point. But it's that challenge of, again, consistency of grades, of accountability, and how we hold kids accountable in this arena of COVID. So that's been a challenge. Also, challenge with sped kids that need that one-on-one back and forth. So And then the social emotional challenges as well. How do we make sure that kids are getting what they need? I've expressed this to Nick a lot, but those kiddos that school was their main safe place are now home with the person that might yell at them all the time, and they have some social emotional needs that the school used to tap into, and remotely it's hard. So another challenge. Yep.
I think those are great points. And the accountability piece, what I'm reading, what I'm hearing, and when I'm having conversations with, yes, the accountability piece is important, very, very important in this moment. Just like Eileen said, there's a population of our students that are having a very, very rough personal life right now. And it's hard to put things in perspective sometimes. Yes, the academics are important. We all feel that way. We all know that. But we have to value those socio-emotional needs as well.
Yeah.
What were some successes, Eileen?
So I'll flip it, because that was also a success in some of our conversation too. About we talked about one student that is on the autism spectrum and was able to get a lot of those social emotional needs and that independent creativity need fulfilled by a teacher that said, yeah, we can do something differently here. We don't have to all be showing our learning in the same way, yes, which I think is another success. And we talked about teachers diving in and learning things on the fly and being collaborative. And we talked about the ability to have Zoom and to have those social needs being met, and that there's schools out there that just meet sometimes just for the social aspect, so they can talk to each other and they can see each other.
Right. Excellent. So right now we have just a little bit of time left. I'd like to focus back to our web page for just a moment, and I'm going to scroll to the top real fast and give you one through here. Please remember, on this website, you have access to a slew of other resources for professional learning. If you're interested in diving deeper, one thing under knowledge deepening is an EdTech toolkit with 150 or so different tools. If that's not where you're needing right now, what you're needing right now, that's okay. The resources on our front page, though, are really meant to support you through that planning of either those educational opportunities or those enrichment opportunities. Today, we spent most of our time talking about those educational opportunities, and we really harped on the idea that manageable expectations, that we want to focus on one essential learning, include some instruction, have a process activity where students get some immediate feedback. Am I on the right track? Have I understood what that instruction, either that reading, and so there might be a reading, a video, an online teacher interaction potentially. So great. The practice activity where you're diving just a little bit deeper, and finally a product. And so when we say product, we're not talking about a 55-page essay. We're not thinking about a 32-slide Google slide presentation. We're thinking something quick and dirty, something quick that students are going to dive deeper into those depths of knowledge and create something that shows their understanding of that one essential learning for this manageable chunk of information. Please do. If you fill out that auto generator, I promise you, I will get in and give you some feedback on that work that you have done. You can pick different templates, so that's all there. Here's another example of what a weekly plan might look like. And when I scroll down, we saw that unit plan as well. We talked a little bit about enrichment opportunities with the understanding that most of our districts are expecting us to be engaging students with those educational opportunities, not enrichment opportunities, but the educational opportunities that include that input, include that instruction. Eileen, what else?
Yeah, I think I'd like to show our remote learning opportunities one more time, because I think it's super important that we know. There we go. Oh, did you share?
I did. Nice.
All right, don't go for that. I won't share. Anyway, talking about the Friday webinars, again, we'll be doing these Friday, May 1st, May 8th, and May 15th as you're getting ready. We will give you feedback. If you do put that into the auto generator, we can give you some feedback. If you don't want to put it into an auto generator and you still want feedback, let us know. Email us. Our email addresses are they on the website? I think they're on the website. But I'm ebarks@esu2.org. We'll throw them in the chat.
Yep. We'll
Nick is nziegler@esu5.org, I believe. But we also have those May workshops coming up, May half day, where you will walk away with some remote learning plans that you can use for the fall. We should have more answers by the middle of May as far as what we're doing. But then there's also that June conference for Future Ready. And it's all about getting us ready to teach in the future. And the future is here. The future is right now, and learning about certain things. And I think that there's certain strands in that even could be about, how do I build relationships with a brand new class online?
Right.
How do I help my parents understand my Google Classroom? How do I work on those social emotional needs? So those kinds of things will be at that conference as well.
Finally, I'd like to reiterate that this is a collaborative effort across our state. Please also feel comfortable reaching out to your local ESU person. They're here to help as well. Contact us, contact them. We hope to see you again next week. You'll get an email from us.
We are so glad you came. Thanks so much. Have a good one.
Thanks for joining.